Bets here on the field of 68, presented by BetRivers. We are the three-man weave, ready to talk to you about all things college hoops on this 152-game slate. We're excited. We're jazzed up. We've got all three of the Weavers here right now, but we may be losing Matthew about halfway through the show. Matt, you've got a big commitment today. Tell the folks about it.
Yeah, the competitive fly fishing tournament of the Southeast. Now I'm going to see our Florida Atlantic Owls play live in person, just a 2-hour jaunt over to Boca Raton. They're hosting Louisiana Tech. That might be a last second at the horn best bet for Matthew. Continuing Kai's tradition of the Tour de Weave best bet in person, which I think was profitable, right, Kai? I think we won money on that approach.
Won money on the approach, Matt. Yes, 2-1 for the old road trip there. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for some Weave content on that Instagram, calling you out publicly.
We'll see.
Hey, I hope the Owls get a win for you. Takeaway for me, Xavier Butler. That was a weird game. Xavier, worst half of the season, looked completely lost, scored 8 points in the first 10 minutes, turned the ball over 18 times. They're one of the best ball handling teams in the country. They were 8 for 14 from the free throw line. Sully Boom twisted an ankle early on in the game, never was the same. The refs called an incorrect goaltend on Jack Nungy the first time. The second time, you don't need to call that, in my opinion. I get why they called it a goaltend. I still would have let it go. Butler fouled down 2. Xavier tied it up. This game had everything. Oh, Nungy called a timeout when he didn't have a timeout. This game was nuts. Craziness. Yes, I agree with the chat. Screw Xavier. I was on the Musketeers, if you couldn't tell. That's my takeaway, Jim.
Yeah, wild game. My takeaway is I'm worried about New Mexico. They've lost 4 of 5. It's their third Q3 loss of the year. Really got run out of the gym by Air Force. I know Jalen House matters, but he shouldn't matter to the degree of having no ability to defend Joe Scott's Princeton offense. That was concerning. We're going to see if the Lobos can rally late, but if they continue this trend, this downward trend, the swoon might leave them outside of the dance. Could be trouble in paradise there. All right, let's get to today's slate. It's fantastic. It's awesome. We're all jacked up and jazzed up and pumped. And then we start with the Iron Bowl. Alabama at Auburn. Matthew's total's been hammered up. Alabama's minus 2.5, but there is some money coming in at Auburn, down at 2 in some places. How do you see this one shaping up between two powerhouses in the SEC?
I think I see the shootout everyone else sees, so that's almost like too obvious. Up to 156, 155.5. Man, I've been kind of bashing Auburn all year, but +2 in the massive home spot where we know they play better. Kind of feel like there's good value there, Kai. I'm not betting it because I've been the token Auburn sort of, throwing shade at them all year. I'm not betting them now. So yeah, can't in good faith endorse an Iron Bowl back of the Tigers.
Well, it's going to be a track meet. Oates is 4-2 to the over since he got to Alabama against Auburn. 5 of their games over 80 possessions the last 3 years against each other. It's going to have a lot of possessions. It's going to fly. It's a huge rivalry game. We know this. I do think Auburn could pull the upset. We saw Alabama obviously falter on the road earlier at Oklahoma. They're capable of laying an egg, but Auburn's been falling, man. They do need this game, but they've lost 4 or 5. They're kind of coming back down to the point where we kind of thought they were, Matt, at the beginning of the season. Can they score? Their offense hasn't been pretty. Hopefully the erratic guards kind of step up in this atmosphere. They tend to do that. Tends to be their MO. At +2.5, I suppose I lean towards Auburn. I still kind of like the over, Jim, at 155.5, but it has moved a ton. It got hammered from the opener.
Yep. Yeah. The over was my best bet in the Circa contest. I tweeted that out, was able to lock it in at 152.5 when I submitted. And obviously it has shot up. People are all over that pace trend. Last year, 80 possessions, 81 possessions in their 2 meetings. That's with no overtime, like just true track meets up and down. And I think with the atmosphere at Auburn, I think the cheapest ticket to get in is like $160 or something. Ooh. It's really a hot seat. So I think with that almost is going to infuse even more energy into the game, up and down. Wendell Green's going to want to get shots up early and often. And he actually had some really big games last year against Alabama, big time shot making. So I think we see that again. Over makes sense. Definitely a little bit hesitant to recommend it where it's at this stage, but I think that's probably the right side. Lean towards Alabama, but I don't want to go against some of the Auburn money that's coming in and the crowd, the jungle. It's a tough place to play. All right, next up, go to the Big East, into the heart of America. Creighton hosting UConn. Kai, your Huskies got right a little bit this week, taking out Marquette, dominating from the opening tip, hit a half-court buzzer beater at halftime to just continue the momentum. Do we buy that that's where this UConn is going? Are they going back up into the clouds, the stratosphere? Because if so, Creighton -4.5 might be a little high.
I think it's a bit high. It's obviously a great spot for Creighton, and everyone agrees this line's gotten a bit out of hand. KenPom made this line Creighton -1. The line's -4.5. Is Creighton better on a neutral? You could probably argue that right now, the way they're playing currently, especially with Kalkbrenner back in the lineup. UConn did win the first game. Kalkbrenner was pretty quiet in that game. He did have 4 blocks. The Jays were 2 for 16 from deep. That probably turns around here. Creighton's as hot as any team in the country right now. They've won 7 straight, only 4-3 against the spread, Matt, during those 7 games, but still, you can see the way they're playing right now. And they're also one of the few teams that can kind of match UConn with size with Kalkbrenner, but that trends 2 ways. Clayton and Snogo do pose problems for Kalkbrenner. I trust Creighton's guards more. I trust them at home more. I do lean towards the Jays at -4.5, but again, it's way too high for me.
Yeah, I like both teams. Just an annoying situation where you have 2 teams you're looking to bet on in good spots, but not a good spot when you put them against each other. Crazy to think that this game closed 7.5, 8 just a month ago. UConn favored by that much, and obviously kind of shows how well Creighton has played. And they covered, right. But I think UConn kept them at bay for most of that game. It wasn't like it was a back and forth affair. I mean, UConn looked like the better team. Now I think Creighton's the better team, but not by a substantial margin. I think UConn kind of convinced people that they still have that top gear in them recently after that little mini swoon. So yeah, I think we talked about this on the action show. It's a really sharp line. If you have a hard, strong take on this game, I guess I would question what your edge is, what your angle is.
My angle, Matt, I don't have a super strong take on it, but I don't buy the UConn resurgence. I'm not in on it. I think they had some hot shooting early, and that fueled a really strong performance. On the road at Creighton, I don't think we'll see the same UConn team. This would be Creighton or nothing for me on the side. Creighton actually kind of dominated the first one inside the paint, totally dominated the glass, 49-34 on the boards, had 20 offensive rebounds against UConn. Thought that was rather impressive. They just didn't hit threes, could not shoot at all. I think we see a much better shooting performance from Creighton. I think even where this line is at, I would still lean towards the Blue Jays, but I was hoping to get -3 or shorter. That didn't happen. Also like the under. First game had 59 possessions in the first 59 minutes. Then some fouling ended up adding a bunch of points and possessions to the total, but very, very slow type of pace, deliberate. And that's been the trend under McDermott versus Hurley, 4 straight unders between these two. I think there is something to that. All right, next up, Baylor at TCU. Baylor 1-point road favorite over the Horned Frogs. Matthew, I love my Horned Frogs, but with no Mike Miles, no Eddie Lampkin, they're just not the same team. So I'm leaning Bears. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you made a pretty good case for this earlier today, Jim. I'm getting Cryer back, presumably, and without Miles and Lampkin. I've said this TCU team is almost immune to injuries to a certain extent, but Miles and Lampkin against this Baylor team, the way that Baylor's headed, especially with the potential kind of emotional jolt that our guy Cha could give them. I love those guards. Kind of my concern, though, is TCU's so good in transition. I know Miles is the catalyst to that, but they can still get out and run with Ball leading the attack. And that's where we've seen Baylor be a little bit vulnerable this season. So if Scott Drew just harps on his guys to get back on defense and sit down in the half court and make TCU score in the half court and make outside shots, I think they win this game.
Yeah, TCU's back at home. You got to like that. But with no Miles, no Lampkin, that's tough, man. JTT's back for Baylor. It's kind of healthy versus not healthy. LJ Cryer status is still kind of up in the air. Obviously, he does matter for Baylor, TBD if he plays. But this Bears team is playing its best basketball right now. They've won 8 of the last 9 games. TCU has been stumbling without Miles in the lineup. They've been competitive, but they've lost 3 or 4. They need him. They need him in the lineup. It's also a Baylor revenge game. They led game 1 by 17 points. They blew it. Mike Miles had 33 points in that game. Lampkin had 15 and 9. I do lean towards Baylor here. Scrappy home TCU scares me a bit, Jim, off this game, but I lean their way at -1. Baylor.
Yeah, shorthanded. It's not like they're rolling over. I don't feel that way about TCU at all. They fight, but they just don't have the oomph, the offensive juice that Miles brings late in the shot clock and just creating for others. And like Matt said, the transition attack, it's strong, but it's not the same without Miles. He is a go guy, can get to the rim, can find others. And a team that can't really shoot from the perimeter, they're going to have to get to the rim. And I think Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua is a really big boost for Baylor's defense. Just the way they switch, the way he communicates, and just giving a more solid presence at the rim. he played 21 minutes last game. Like he's legitimately getting into a real rotation slot despite a recent return from that gruesome knee injury. So it'd be Baylor for me. No real take on the total, but definitely a Baylor side bet for me. All right, next up, West Virginia at Texas. One more Big 12 game before we lose our beloved Matt to Boca Raton. Texas, a 7-point home favorite here, laying a touchdown. Matt, spread is not that big on KenPom, so is very much people see the Longhorns as better than the analytics project them, or West Virginia a little worse. What say you big Mountaineer lover, you?
Yeah, you got to respect home court here. We'll talk about it. Well, actually, I mean, I get a chance to talk about it, but some of the Big Ten home road splits are so stark. The Big 12 hasn't been as dominant home teams this season. But I think West Virginia is, one of those squads where I trust them a lot more in really good spots. They've still been more competitive away from home and outside of those good spots. And people realize, kind of like Rutgers, I think people just only chalk them up to a home dominant. They suck everywhere else. And I know we talked about how I think we're back in on Texas, but 7's a big number. I think this game can get a little bit ugly, grindy. If West Virginia can impose some interior dominance, Kai, you can see Texas struggling to put them away emphatically here. I do worry about West Virginia's ball handling against the pressure, but with Eric Stevenson's hidden shots, they can be pretty much anyone in the country.
Yeah, West Virginia is a train that's humming along right now, and they lack road wins. They've beaten Pitt, they've beaten Texas Tech on the road. One more here, especially against Texas. I think that would be the clincher for the dance. And Texas has motivation too, right? They're still in play for a 1 seed. They're able to get to that if they really win out or do well these last few games here. In game 1, Texas won by 8 on the road. West Virginia did have the lead in the second half. It was close throughout. They just couldn't finish inside the arc. They couldn't score against Texas's interior defense. 41% from 2. They also had 20 turnovers in that game. That's concerning, but look what they just did against Iowa State, man. They handled the ball. 11 turnovers against Iowa State's defense is very good. Yes, they were at home, but I think they're just firing on all cylinders right now here, Jim. +7 is the way I'd lean towards this game, towards the West Virginia Mountaineers.
Yeah, to Matt's point, West Virginia hasn't been disastrous on the road, but like you said, Kai, the 2 wins aren't really that impressive. Pitt was reeling early in the year. I mean, it looks awesome now to win at Pitt by 25. But it's a team that's very reliant on the whistle. Like they foul a ton. They really need to get to the line to score efficiently. They don't really finish inside. They're dead last in the league in 2-point percentage, 48% inside the arc. Not very good. So they need those free throws to boost the efficiency. That concerns me a little bit. I like the under here, and I'm with Matt. I think this stays a little bit closer. It's kind of like when Kansas lays 8 or 9 at home in Big 12 play.
Right.
I don't really want to lay that. The teams are too even. I think it stays at least within that number. All right, Kai, let's get Chat Mob Part 1 taken care of. Folks, before we do, make sure you hit that like button. Got a lot of people hanging in here on a spinny Saturday. Hit the like button. Let's rack up a big total there. What do you got for us, Kai?
Is Matt gone after Chat Mob?
Yeah, so we're sending all questions to him.
I'm going to dart it when you least expect it, Kai.
Better give us your best bet before you go. I will not say it for you.
I will.
Ethan asks about a Big Ten game. Wisconsin and Nebraska. The Badgers are on the road. Turning hopes in the win, in the balance in the win, Jim. -2.5 at Nebraska. Your thoughts?
Nebraska's just really struggling lately. Injuries have taken their toll with them with no Gary, no Bandamel. My guy Tominaga has been a real threat from deep, but I think Wisconsin may be riding the ship a little bit, and they've actually been solid on the road. They're not completely hopeless outside of Madison. Lean towards the Badgers.
Matthew, San Diego Pacific over is the question from Ethan. It's 160. 160.
I can't figure out the San Diego over thing. I know they don't guard anybody, but they've shown signs of life when Delaire's been in there. I don't know who's playing for this team today. I've stopped keeping up with their injuries. I know they got healthier last game, but it's just too whack-a-mole, both on side and total, for me to trust it.
Yeah, Williams and Delaire are both out last game. Townsend returned from a funeral, so he wasn't actually hurt. But it's tough to figure them out.
Last one from Ethan is Murray State and Bradley. Murray State's +11 on the road. Murray State has given up 99 and then 91 points in consecutive games. One of those games was at home. This team's either broken or they have really bad luck. Either way, I'm staying away from them for now, Jim.
Yep, agreed. Home Bradley versus road Murray State is probably the Braves.
And Jim from J. Will, Providence and St. John's, a good game in the Big East that didn't quite make our rundown. Providence is laying 5 on the road. Your thoughts?
Yeah, St. John's has almost turned this into not a good game with their recent performances. David Jones is in, Andre Curbelo is out. So kind of player shuffling there for the Johnnies. I like that trade quite a bit for them.
Yeah,
And I don't love Providence as a road favorite. They're an awesome road dog and a good in any game that's like a pick 'em. I'm not sure I want to lay it with them. I sort of lean towards the Johnnies on the number with that David Jones back in the lineup.
Matthew, Kentucky and Georgia. Kentucky's laying 7.5 on the road. Speculation, Terry Roberts might be back for Georgia. We know CJ Frederick is out for Kentucky. Severe Wheeler, TBD. Your thoughts?
Yeah, not a lot of depth. I kind of like the dogs here at home with Roberts back in. I think he's immensely important, like a really good defender, kind of steadies their offense. And the Kentucky resurgence was short-lived. They certainly fooled me. I'll put my hand up, be the first to admit I missed that one. And yeah, the whole Oscar Sheboy defensive liability thing is very real. I was not sure if Mike White's the type of coach with how he plays to exploit that, but that's been a real issue for Kentucky. They have no solution to that.
Jim, let's go Big South. Presbyterian is hosting UNC Asheville. Asheville -4.5 on the road.
Yeah, it feels really short, like 19-win team against a 5-win team. You're like, whoa, what's happening here? But Presbyterian's not very good. They slow the game down, though. They muck it up. I could see this being an under game where or Presbyterian puts all their defensive attention on Drew Pember and forces everyone else on Asheville to beat him. It feels obvious, but I still gut lean towards Asheville. I just think they're categorically better than Presbyterian.
Matthew, in the Ivy, you love the Ivy. Cornell is laying 2 on the road at Brown. Questions for Cornell. Nazir Williams. Is he in? Is he out? He's missed the last several games. They've been kind of struggling without him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they need him. They don't have a ton of like creators at the point of attack. So I'm not going to wait until I know he's in, but I would lean their way if he was in.
Let's go with Jim on this one. Bryant and UMBC. Yeah. Chat says Bryant's taking a lot of money. They're -1.5. I think it open pick. They're at UMBC.
They're starting to play really well, getting up into, I think, a tie for second now in the America East, especially with the Vermont Lowell going on today. Bryant could be in second at the end of the day. Lean their way. No surprise to see a total at 160. I kind of think over still has a little value. Both teams love a shootout. I think this game gets really up and down.
They've gotten healthier. Kramer back and Bullock. So yeah, Bryant might be a sneaky buy low here.
Matthew from John. Charlotte is on the road at North Texas. Ali Khalifa back for Charlotte last game. They're +6.5 at the Mean Green. Your thoughts?
111 is a total, Kai.
111.
And I like the under. I can't even lay a favorite with a 111. I kind of lean North Texas. So I was like, really? They're going to cover 6 and score 50 points? I don't know. Right. Under and then don't bet aside. That's my take.
All right, Jim, last one before we go back to the rundown here. Indiana State at Northern Iowa. I'll get you an updated spread here if I can find it. +2.5. The Panthers are dogs at home hosting the Sycamores.
Yeah, Indiana State maybe has figured it out a little bit. Not quite to the extent maybe that Drake has figured it out. But I numbers said under here, Kai. Don't like betting unders in Indiana State games because they can change the tempo on you. Didn't really have a strong take on the side, unfortunately.
All righty, let's go back to the rundown, or if Matt wants to give his best bet. I don't know what your schedule is, kid.
I'm going to stay until after my alma mater is discussed, and then I'll lob 2 best bets into the ether, and then I'll dart for the door.
All right, fun. Okay. All right, then we're getting to UCLA at Oregon here first. UCLA -2.5 on the road. But man, Altman has kind of owned Mick Cronin. He's won 4 of the last 5 straight up. He's covered 5 in a row. Kai, does that give the edge to Oregon at home, who's also very desperate for wins to get into the tournament picture?
They are desperate. They're on the outside looking in. They're on the bubble by everyone's opinion right now. And UCLA is kind of stuck in neutral as a 2 or 3 seed. They really lack quality wins. They don't have a ton of chances left to get them either. This would qualify for sure, but I don't think UCLA has much of a upward trajectory towards a 1 seed. The path, it's there, but it's dicey. Oregon, they need to win this game. And you mentioned Jim Altman over Cronin. Oregon's beaten UCLA at home here 3 straight seasons. 3 straight years they've beaten them. Size is an advantage here. Can they get Adam Bona in foul trouble, Matthew? They have plenty of length to kind of match up with Jaquez and Campbell. I do like the home angle that you should get their best effort from Oregon, but it is the Ducks, and we don't trust them. And the line, it's a lot shorter than what KenPom's got it at. KenPom's got it 5. This line's only 2.5. I lean towards the Ducks, but I stayed away.
Yeah, there's like 4 games on the board today where I think the market is really against, KenPom and the numbers. And I kind of agree with KenPom and the numbers here. That's not to say I lean UCLA, but I think that 2 is a little too short. And you're right, Kai, this Oregon team, relative to teams of years past, from like waiting for the March uptick, I don't fully trust it. Even though Jim, my guy Nate Biddle, is the X factor tonight, had 11 points in 18 minutes last game. I think he's a mismatch for these Bruins.
Yeah, Nate no longer Biddle. He's put some muscle on. That guy can actually battle inside now. It feels like the healthier version of Oregon is actually starting to come together here. And I think the Altman ownership of Cronin recently actually is real. It's some of the defensive changes that he throws out kind of messes with what UCLA wants to do offensively, dealing towards the Ducks, getting 2.5 at home there. Big bubble win, hopefully, in their future. All right, Matt, talk about your alma mater. Let's do it. You gotta tell us about IU at Michigan. Michigan is laying 2.5 here. Excuse me.
Right.
Your Hoosiers off of 2 massive emotional home wins. Is this a fade spot for your alma mater?
Yeah, tough spot. We saw IU, lay an egg in this spot before the Purdue game. And Michigan's been better at home historically, but this Michigan team, again, another example where Ken Pom has this IU winning by 1. Market continues to have Michigan rated higher than most. I was in that same boat. I've kind of come away from that. It's too much here to lay a field goal with Michigan at home. I don't trust this team. I know they've played better the last couple of games, but what? They beat Nebraska at home. Whoop-de-doo. They beat who they just beat it before that.
They won at Northwestern by 17, which is actually really impressive.
Impressive. And they come back home and beat Ohio State. That's not impressive anymore. And Nebraska by 21. I'm not impressed by that. I still think it's a little bit of a reaction to Michigan's mini uptick that I don't know if it's all the way legit. So I like the Hoosiers here. Famous last words. Fading a home team in the Big Ten has not been profitable. Kai, here's the numbers real quick. Sorry. 1 second.
No apologies necessary.
55 and 34 home teams in the Big Ten this year. 55 and 34.
ATS?
Is that all
ATS.
games or conference only?
games? Conference only.
Games.
ATS.
Wow. Okay.
55-34.
Interesting. Home matters.
We've
So
always
basically,
known
I
Big
just
Ten
said
home.
mood. Do not bet against home teams in the Big Ten. Don't. Do
Hey,
it.
I was harping on Big Ten home at the beginning of the conference play. It's finally come around. Well, it's great to hear. The spot's Michigan, right? Indiana's off those 2 big wins. Rutgers, Purdue. Michigan needs this. They're kind of like Oregon. They're more outside the bubble right now than Oregon. They're outside of the first 4 out. They've had 3 straight covers. I know Matt mentioned their opponents, but 3 straight covers in the ATS world, all things are equal. Yeah. They are playing better than expected. Michigan's 2-1 since Hunter Dickinson got there against Indiana, but we all think TJD is clearly better. Maybe Hunter steps up when he's highly motivated. He obviously always has a chip on his shoulder. Maybe he shows out in this game, Jim. Athleticism on both sides. Love the upside of of both teams' young wings. I lean towards the Wolverines, and it's mostly a spot thing here.
Yep, same. Michigan, love the spot. I don't know if Xavier Johnson might kind of try to debut back here for Indiana. I like him as a long-term piece for them, but it could be a little bit of a jarring to the rotation type of thing if he comes in and doesn't upset the apple cart, but like just, makes everybody play a different role. So I like Michigan as well. All right, Matthew, we cannot let you go without your best bets. Hit us with those, and then we will let you take off on the road.
I'm taking, of course, the FAU Owls laying 11 because that's just part of our policy here. We bet teams in which we watch in person. We believe we are worth at least a point or 2 or more to the side. So go ahead and lay it there with presumably locked in and motivated FAU squad as they continue their quest on an at-large berth. My second and initial best bet, UNLV, taking the Rebs, catching way too many, in my opinion, at San Diego State, who I know has been terrific. Just a good spot for the Rebs, who struggled to start conference play after a really strong non-con. They've got Eli Parquet back, Parquet, really critical defender. They played better with him. Look at the results. I know they've been inconsistent, but they're not a team that gets blown out. They will compete in this game. I think it's ugly. It's gross. San Diego State coming off that big win midweek. I think they keep this competitive. So the Rebs and the Owls, and then not a best bet, but real quick before I go and you guys discuss this game, the Devils are going to win at JPJ today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maddie money lines calling the Dukies
out.
Right. And yes, Matt's UNLV bet is +9. He did his whole don't quite say the number.
Doesn't matter. Number agnostic, Jim. It's a lock.
All right, beautiful.
Take care.
All right, enjoy, Matthew. Cheers. The Spinny Boys will finish this one out.
Bye, Matt.
Goodbye, Matt. Hope you find your dad. All right, Kai, let's talk Duke at Virginia. Matt gave us a little lead in for it. He believes the Devils win outright. They are a 6-point underdog. Kai, I don't agree with him. I will get to why in a second, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Did you see that transition on the video? That's fantastic, Dagan. Golly, your producing skills are ridiculous.
God tier producer.
Yes. Whitehead's back for Duke. That's important. They were 1-3 against the spread without him. But Virginia seems like a tough matchup, man. Number one in the ACC in turnover rate. Duke turns the ball over at the second highest rate in the conference. Duke's offense doesn't have the intricate cutting that we saw, for instance, Virginia Tech do against Virginia. That really, surprisingly, Jim, like sliced and diced them. It was not pretty. I think Derek Lively gets a couple lobs here and there. Virginia's been susceptible to that, but overall, I don't think Duke scores very easily. They can't shoot. They cannot shoot over this pack line. That's a big problem. They have the glass edge. I don't think it's enough here. I actually lean towards Virginia, even at -6.
Yeah, I lean towards Virginia too, and here's why. My guy Caden Shedrick, Kai, he dusted off the cobwebs and actually played 26 minutes last game. He did not play a single minute against Virginia Tech when their interior defense looked like a sieve, and I don't really understand why. Virginia is +31 per 100 possessions when he plays, only +15 per 100 when he sits. So the advanced numbers scream Shedrick is a really big deal. Bennett and the whole rotation or the guys that were in the post-game presser talked about staying ready, and Shedrick stayed ready and practiced really well. I think the fact that, like you said, Duke can't shoot over the pack line, and now there's actually an interior enforcer in there with Shedrick, that gives too many issues for the Blue Devils to score. I would lean towards Virginia as well. All right, next up, last one before we go back to Chat Mob, and Kai will kind of tag team all the questions. I know they're rolling in there.
I got him, baby.
State.
I'm locked in, man.
You're so sharp. I sit there and whine every Saturday when I'm the chat mobber.
Got the old pen and pencil, baby. Matt style.
Pen and pencil. What are you writing on then?
Pen and pencil. That's all I need. Just write on the pencil.
Paper. Okay. All right. Oklahoma State at Iowa State. So last one on the outline here. Iowa State, 6-point favorite. Man, we expect another grind fest. The first one was big time war. Kai, Avery Anderson had 18 points in that game, 5 assists. He also had 8 turnovers. So do we go addition by subtraction? How does this matchup look to you? The Iowa State laying 6 at Hilton.
Yeah, big bounce back spot for Iowa State. Number one from that first game, but also the way they've been playing recently. They've lost 3 of 4. 3 of them were on the road. They fought in all of them. They should have beaten Texas Tech, and they had some injuries in those games, right? Caleb Grill missed for Iowa State in the Mizzou game. That was huge. OK State survived Texas Tech. They've won 4 in a row, but Jim, with Avery Anderson out, I'm worried about them. I think that catches up with them. It was an ugly game in the first one. Iowa State was 2 for 9 from deep, 7 for 12 from the free throw line. It's probably ugly again, but I expect Iowa State to play a lot better, especially at home. Oklahoma State will turn the ball over. They will struggle to score without Anderson, and at least Iowa State can shoot. So I lean towards the Clones here at -6.
Yep, agreed. And no, Anderson takes away a lot of perimeter playmaking for them, and they'd started to figure things out with Cisse not really a part of the lineup. They'd fed Caleb Boone a ton, but now I don't know really where the scoring comes from, especially against a team that can turn you over, get going in transition in front of their home crowd. Who mentioned in the chat, William Herman, Iowa State has not lost at home, correct? Like that team is really, really good at Hilton. And I think that boosts the shooting. Kai, we saw it with our Tigers, our Mizzou Tigers a couple times. We're getting back home. Yes. Suddenly you make shots again. I think Iowa State has that going for them today. All right, let's get to Chat Mob Part 2 before we give away our best bets and hopefully remember and reiterate Matthew's best bets.
Smash that like, and here we go. Penn State, Maryland, Jim, from Graham. Wow, this line is taken off, man. -8, Maryland? Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, this is home Maryland. They've been a complete juggernaut, but I do kind of agree with what Matt's saying with the Big Ten home. I don't want to really get in the way. It seems really high to me. I did not make this 8. I'll tell you that much. I made it lower, but I'm a little spooked by how good the Terps have been at home and how strong Big Ten home court is. So I will not take Penn State.
Yeah, it's high. That's high. How about another Big East game? I guess I can answer this question. We'll ping pong. Seton Hall at Villanova. Nova's laying 5. Again, another game above the KenPom line, but this one makes more sense, right? Justin Moore fully back in the lineup. I think Villanova starts trending up. I lean towards Nova, Jim.
I do too. I think it opened 3.5, and people are also buying that same narrative that we're talking about. Yeah. 5 might be a little steep, but man, I do think Nova starts to play really well, and Moore's numbers looked really good the last 2 games.
From Red, Virginia Tech at Notre Dame. I liked the Hokies here. It's up to -6. Notre Dame, one of the worst ATS teams in the country.
Yep. And for some reason, Virginia Tech can't beat Boston College, but I think they kind of slice up Notre Dame's horrific defense.
Agreed. From Graham, Cincinnati and South Florida, the Bearcats have been rolling lately. They are -9 against the Bulls.
Yeah, Victor Locken, I think, is iffy for this one. The Loch Ness Monster, as I like
Very
to
good.
call him.
Yes.
And no one agrees. No one will pick up on my cool nicknames, Kai. It frustrates me. But I think that's a big deal. If he's not in there, they can't dominate the paint quite as much. South Florida has been kind of an over machine this year after not being able to score. I don't have a strong take on the side on this one, Kai. Maybe a little bit high, would lean towards the Bulls if Locken's out, but I'm not actually going to take it.
From Daryl St. Joe's and George Washington. Tell you what, I lean towards George Washington in this game. I think 4.5 is too many points. Kasper Klacic is still TBD for St. Joseph's. He's missed the last 3 games with illness. No idea if he's back. He's pretty huge for them. But I lean towards GW. Jim from 9 Route, LMU, Santa Clara. Big spot for Santa Clara here.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to for me. LMU off an overtime win 48 hours ago against St. Mary's, like crazy comeback. I believe in the final 10 minutes of that game, so last 5 minutes of regulation and overtime, LMU scored 2 points per possession. Like absurd. They scored every time down except for 1 or 2, and then they had 2 and 1s to make up for it. It was ridiculous. I think going up to the Bay with Gonzaga on deck, the rematch, it might be too tough of a spot for LMU. I think this play is to Santa Clara for sure.
Rice is at FIU from Tate here. Tell you what, man, I'm not getting in the way of FIU. This team has been a wagon lately. They're covering every game, especially at home. I lean towards FIU -3. I'm just not stepping in front of this team there.
Yep, playing a lot slower in league play, and it's actually really helping them.
Jim, in the WAC from Kyle, Southern Utah is at Utah Valley. Utah Valley laying 5.5.
Yeah, kind of a rivalry, beehive rivalry. I think these two teams, there's no love lost, Kai, between them.
No love lost.
I expect a lot of points. I actually almost played the over for my Circa contest with this one. I think Southern Utah loves to get up and down, and Utah Valley is relatively willing to in a rivalry game. Didn't end up playing it, Kai, and I didn't have a take on the side. I think this is going to be a really, really good one in that conference.
I agree. From OG Souls, the Zags, BYU over 156. It's a big number. I suppose I lean that way. I will never take an under when these two teams play against each other, but it is pretty high number, Jim.
Agreed. Gonzaga scored 60 in the first half against San Francisco, and they didn't even shoot the 3 well. Like they're just getting up and down and getting great shots.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in. Oh, so by the way, I will mention the tiebreaker in the WCC is the net ranking. So Gonzaga has every incentive to blow teams out because then if they beat St. Mary's on the last day, they can maybe pass them in the net. So we'll see if that matters.
In Marquette, Georgetown, the over Ted, it's kind of like the Gonzaga one. I'm not going to take an under when Marquette, Georgetown play. I think both Marquette's going to slice and dice them. They're off that loss to UConn. I think they're going to smash, score a lot of points. Jim Phillip asks about Rutgers at Illinois. Talked about Big Ten home court. Illinois is -5.5. Rutgers on the road. Thoughts?
Yeah, I was kind of excited to take Illinois. This is another one where it's very far off the KenPom number, but I get it. No Maywat Mag actually matters a lot for Rutgers. Lose their lineup versatility, lose their depth. Illinois trending up. I think we're getting a Luke Goody debut today for the Illini.
Wow,
so just adding to that. Yeah, I would lean towards Illinois there.
Andrew asks about Louisiana at Troy. I did take the Cajuns. I think it's a good bounce back spot for them after their loss to Southern Miss. And they also took care of business against Troy in game 1. I think they do so again. -2, short spread there on the road. Jim, Dan asks about Monmouth, the wagon that is Monmouth. But guess who's just as much of a wagon ATS-wise lately? Hofstra. Both teams playing very well against the number. Hofstra is laying -11, I think, on the road.
Yeah, it's come down a little bit. I think I had seen 12 yesterday, so people are definitely buying the Monmouth resurgence. They're not really resurging with their offense, though, and that's tough. You got to be able to score against Hofstra because that team really can score. Estrada's back in there for Hofstra. 11 feels a tad low, but I'm not going against Monmouth the way they're playing right now.
From J Money, EMU +12 hosting Toledo. Here's my concern here. I know EMU's been covering spreads like it's their job recently. Imani Bates looking better. Toledo kills bad teams in this league, and that's my only concern, Jim. They can blow teams out. Has me staying away.
Yeah. Is Eastern Michigan still a really bad team? That's kind of the question with the talent level starting to actually play up a little bit there. 167 total, I think it is. My number said under, and I said, no, thank you. I am not interested when both teams score 1.2 points per possession, and this game has like 200 points. I'm not interested in that.
Matt asks about UMass and LaSalle. I know our Matt liked LaSalle in this game. With RJ Luis out, with Noah Fernandez out.
Wait, RJ Luis is available, warming up.
Really? Wow, he was
Just
reported out.
announced. Yep.
Okay. Rasul Diggins is still out. If Luis is in, and this is why you probably see the line coming back down a little bit here, I'd actually lean towards UMass at +4, but I am staying away. LaSalle's won 2 or 3 in a row. They look better. Jim, a big one we have not discussed, actually. Kansas at Oklahoma from John here. The Jaybirds are laying 3 on the road at the Sooners, 3.5.
Yeah, that feels a little high. Oklahoma's home efforts have been really, really good. And not just when they win, like they obviously blew out Alabama. That's the standout one. But they lose to Baylor by 2, beat West Virginia by 1, lose to Iowa State by 3, lose to Texas by 1. Like they just hang around at home. I would not want to lay over a possession with Kansas. It'd be Oklahoma or nothing there.
Mercer at Chattanooga. Man, Chattanooga's only a 3.5 point favorite. Without Jake Stevens, they've been just below average. They've just been a regular, no big deal team. So I can't lay points with Chattanooga. And Jim Mercer's kind of won a few games recently. They're kind of rounding back into shape a little bit. Not gonna say fully back.
Is right there in the heart of my no bet list. I don't know what to think of that team. Very up and down.
Jim, from Ed, you get Colgate. They're playing against Bucknell. Colgate is on the road, and they're laying 11 points on the road.
Yeah, what do you guys say? Fade Colgate and the Patriot at your own risk? Like,
exactly.
I'm not really enthused by that idea. Bucknell can go in weird scoring droughts that just take them out of the game completely. So slight lean to Colgate, but I didn't bet it.
Miami and Louisville. This spread is ginormous. What was it? 20 last time I looked? Yeah, 20 points Miami's laying against Louisville. I mean, shoot, I don't know how you can be confident taking Louisville.
Yeah, they're outside the top 300 in KenPom. My goodness. Yeah. Against good teams, they lost by 34 at Pitt. And then they haven't really played good teams. The Pitt lost by 21, but they had the Notre Dame, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Florida State in there. So I think going back to playing good teams, Louisville's going to be in trouble.
Obscure one in the Big South, Upstate, +4.5 at Winthrop. I cannot figure Upstate out for the life of me. They've beaten some good teams in this league. They've also put in some stinkers. Full stay away from me on that game. I got nothing. Apologies. Jim, another big one that missed the outline in the Big 12. It's Kansas State at Texas Tech. It's about a pick. I lean towards the Wildcats. I fully respect home court, but I like K-State.
Yep, agreed. Texas Tech, I won't call them circling the drain. They were very competitive last time out, but man, 1-10 in the league, not a ton left to play for. No Pop Isaacs, probably no IMAC. I lean towards K-State. I also like the over with Bacho not starting for Texas Tech. They're willing to play faster, smaller, and I think K-State will ramp up the tempo. First one was really ugly, 68-58, but I think we see more points here.
We got kind of a little phenomenon here in the A-Sun. Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State play right after playing each other just a couple of days ago. Kennesaw's -9 at home, Jim. They did not cover game 1. They only won by 2 against Jacksonville State on the road. I tend to lean towards A-Sun home here and lean towards Kennesaw in a rematch.
Yeah, I think that was a buzzer beater that could take the wind out of the sails for Jacksonville State. Like we had them, we competed. Now we got to play these guys again who are definitely better than us. I'm sitting it out, but yeah, probably lean towards the home team.
Another one from Joey here, Bellarmine and Queens. They just played each other as well, I think, pretty recently. Queens -5 makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I get it.
I don't love this version of Queens with no McClooney and Gavin Rains. I think you take out Rains and they're just not quite as strong, especially defensively. He's like their only guy with beef. McLaurin's solid, but I think Rains matters. I think I lean towards Bellarmine, Kyle. I guess they're shorthanded too still with no Wieland.
From Paul, Jim, in the troops battle, Army-Navy, I lean towards Army at +4.5, but I'm done fading Navy. It seems like every time I get back on the fade Navy train, they come right back at me. So I'm just like, no, thank you. No, thanks.
Yeah, there's been some crazy games between these two over the years. I think last year there was like a 25-point comeback.
Yes,
I think Army came from behind. It's just absolutely nuts. So yeah, not a rivalry I want to lay points in. I think it tends to be close. Navy did win by 6 earlier this year, but at Army, I would lean towards the ground troops getting the points.
All right, let's do 3 more and then go to our best bets real quick. Dartmouth hosting Princeton +7.5. Tend to lean towards the Dogs and Ivy play here, Jim, especially at home. These two, I think, played a double overtime game last game.
Yeah, Dartmouth's pretty good, man.
Scrappy.
Like especially in league play, they've been really, really solid. Haven't really gotten blown out. I guess Yale beat them by 19 last time, which makes me sound like a bozo. But I think they're able to compete with Princeton.
Jim, from TJ, you're going to take the Razorbacks with Nick Smith back laying 6.5 against Mississippi State.
I like Arkansas generally with Nick Smith back a lot. The talent level is really high. I think he adds some perimeter pop that maybe helps spread the floor out. But Mississippi State's going to make them shoot over the top, and that's really Arkansas's weakness. So I think Arkansas wins, and I'm guessing Smith looks pretty good back in the lineup, but I'm not willing to lay it, Kai. I just think the number's a little too high against a compact physical defense.
And then finally, San Jose State hosting Utah State +6. San Jose State is a dog at home. I'll tell you what, I like San Jose State at home in general. I like fading Utah State on the road in general. As a home team this year, San Jose State 7-3 against the spread. They just play better there. I lean their way at 6. All right, let's get best bets. We appreciate the questions, guys. Got to get you out before the 11 o'clock. The hour hits 11 here, Central Time. My best bet, Miami, Ohio. -7 is the way we're going. Yes, I'm back on the Red Hawk train. They've let me down in the past, and boy, oh boy, was I mad at them.
You were so mad last time.
So mad. Frustrating. I'm not going to watch this game. Here's why. Central Michigan, 0-4 against the spread, -9 cover margin without Jesse Sorsuela in the lineup. He's probably done for the year. Speculation, probably done, though. Central Michigan cannot score without him. Miami should find buckets. It's also a revenge game for Miami. They lost this first game at CMU. They were 5 for 26 from 3, and Zarzuela had 19 points in that game. So I like Miami here -7, Jim.
Love it. Recapping Matt's best bets, I believe it was FAU -11 and UNLV +9. So reminder on those. And mine are 2 ugly unders on the extra board. Let's eat them up, baby. St. Francis, Brooklyn, and Stonehill under 125.5. St. Francis, New York just played a overtime game earlier this week. Stonehill has been a total under machine since they started playing a ton of zone. I think this one is gruesome, really, really stays ugly. And then also Gardner-Webb versus Campbell, another 2 slow teams with way better offenses than defenses. Last year, their 2 games were 57-45 and 54-53. Earlier this year, they had a 63-58 one. Sounds like a shootout, but it's still under 125. I think we get another grind out game between those 2 opponents. Well, that is it. A couple of ugly unders, Kai. I'm so excited. That's it for today. That is our Spinny Saturday show. A lot of games to enjoy, folks, so please do that. Good luck with all of your bets. Thank you to BetRivers, Field of 68, and of course, Dagan Hughes. We're sorry about our Seton Hall potential fading today. Don't fire us, please. But that's it for the chat. We'll be back again on Monday, I believe, after the Super Bowl, talking that Monday slate, big Monday. Enjoy your Saturday. And again, good luck.